Truly the only black artist that works in metal and painting and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really the only one. I mean, we have a lot of black painters. We have a lot of black painters.
Yeah.
But nobody else is doing like sculpture like this.
Work. No, bro.
And I'm like, I have to represent. I was like, everywhere I go, I'm like, I want people to know that we are capable of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll bear that on my shoulders. I like, fuck it, I'll trust myself. I'll bear that on my shoulders and and represent.
Yeah.
And be like, come talk to me.
Yeah.
If you think black people can't do any sculpture, come talk to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm damn sure doing it. Yeah. So, and that's what I love about it is not the fact that I'm literally the only one that's doing it.
Right.
But I'm good at it.
And you know that you're the only one, but you're representing. It's not like you're coming here with a standard that like everybody has to respect on the merits of the craft.
Yeah, and it's like, with all the attacks on DEI and all that stuff, it's like, it's good that people who you would normally think wouldn't look at me as, oh, he's a black guy, he can't really pull this off, finding out I can pull it off. Yeah. Find out, just because I'm who I am, doesn't mean I can't work this. I can work it, and that's why you shouldn't hold this shit in your head that, you just got it because you got, because you're special or some federal program let you have.
Right, this whole thing.
No, I'm good at what I'm fucking good.
Action. Yeah, and we can explore that, and we can talk about in the interview the black legacy of metalworking, whatever it is you refer to, but just being even if being a black man in metalworking in this particular city or just in America, I want you to go as deep as you possibly can about whatever is affecting you in your current mind state with your art, and my questions will cater to that.
Okay,
because I want to let you rip, you know what I'm saying, and let you get in. I can already tell your. No, it's all good, yo.
Now we can tap back.
That's all good. We can
talk back into the dangers of it. Yeah, let's go all over the place.
Yo, so on our 4th episode of Infinite Arts, used to be called Infinite Abstraction, now it's called Infinite Arts Podcast. I am so happy, honored, and thankful to have the wonderful Keith Ramsey in the spot. Metalwork, painter, you name it, this guy does it, in the visual arts and just even his business when he does metalworking. It's a true honor to have you here. Be in your space, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us here on the video cast. And we were just talking about some fascinating stuff, man. And I just want you to get right into it, like your upbringing, if you're from Virginia or where you're from, how you got into metalwork. Because when I think of metalwork, I think of going to some African spiritual elements, Ogun. And that came to me while you were talking. And we know Ogun deals with blacksmithing and metal and clearing the path. So not that you have to go in that direction, but I feel that energy in the space. So I'm definitely happy to be here. And let's start it off, brother. Go for yours, man. Where you from? What's popping, man? How'd you get here?
I'm from Williamsburg, Virginia. Born and raised in Williamsburg. My mom was an artist. My dad was a teacher. Both of them were teachers.
Okay.
But mom and dad, dad drove buses at night for Colonial Williamsburg, and back then you still had to have like a second job.
For sure.
And that's what he did for over 30 years.
Right on.
Yeah, man. He got awards and stuff for being a safe driver. So I'm proud of him, proud of my mom. But that's where I get this kind of energy of wanting to be an artist. My mom was always like, "Oh, come do some oil paintings with Bob Ross," and I was like, "No,
right?
No, I don't want to do oil painting." And here I am,
doing oil paintings.
doing oil paintings and stuff, and painting and doing all that stuff. So I mean, it just kind of they were always supportive of me and my brother. My brother was a musician.
Okay, great.
He played bass and all that stuff, but they were always supportive of what we did as far as creativity. It was never like, oh, go find a real job. It was never like that.
Okay, cool.
So cool. It was like, they let us find our way, find out and support us in what we did.
That's awesome, man.
And so when I left Williamsburg and came up here to Richmond, it was for VCU, went through paint and printmaking and all that stuff, and, art boot camp. And it was, it was okay, but it was tough. It was tough trying to find my way, but there was professors in there that taught me not to love what you do because you're able to change it. Don't fall in love with like one part of your painting,
right,
and not change that painting because you're in love with this one spot. Be able to take it and erase what you've done and start over and find a different path, because that will always be able to take you to a different place,
right,
and get you the results that you want.
Right.
So that's what I that kind of stuck with me the whole time I was going through the 90s and all that stuff and finding my way, creating my own style. And Cityscapes of Noir was a big part of it. And as a matter of fact, that tracked from the 90s all the way till now. I still do the Cityscapes of Noir series.
Yeah, I saw you talking about it. Yeah.
So I still do that. I've gotten on to doing the fragments, which is the cloud paintings.
Right.
Because I wanted to shut up in my work. I got tired of doing political work. I was like, why can't I just stop speaking? Why can't I just do something abstract?
Right.
Well, even that comes out to be kind of political, because if you look at the paintings, there's a little spot of humanity underneath those clouds.
Yeah.
And it's like the message is the world is always going to be bigger than what man can do to it.
Right.
Even when we're gone, the world will survive.
Right.
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 So, I mean, that's kind of the driving force of what I do as far as my art and stuff like that. So,
man, that's really fascinating to hear. We were talking about how you come from Williamsburg, I come from Richmond. We know the history here.
mm-hmm.
And given the history for y'all that don't know, this area was where the corporation we now call the United States of America was developed. In colonial Williamsburg, supposedly John Smith at that time came and met the indigenous people here, and there were Africans with him, and that whole story came. And now we're talking about Richmond, which was the capital of the Confederacy. And, this man is an expert metal worker. And you were talking about some of the issues around being one of the few, if maybe the only, creative artist and just metal worker who does projects outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
being possibly the only Black one. And what are your perspectives on that? I'd like you to share your perspectives on being Black in a space that's typically considered white or other nationality.
Yeah. We're basically like, when you think of metal worker and stuff like that, you don't think Black metal worker,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Well, let's go back to how I got here. I started off with when I worked as a graphic designer back in 2012 at a firm.
Uh-huh.
I'm coming from a graphic design background, which is also like, this helps me design the work that I do.
Sure.
And it helps me, get through the creative process, problem solving, all that stuff.
Sure.
So as I was working as a creative designer in a graphic designer back in 2012, I came across this thing called steampunk. Now, people should know, would know what steampunk is. Even if they don't know what it's called, they know what it looks like.
Right.
And so I got really into that. Like it was like all I was thinking about. So I started creating this stuff as a creative artist, as a steampunk artist.
Okay.
I was doing stuff, but I didn't know how to weld at the time.
Okay.
Well, in 2013, I had a literal crossroads. Okay. I was going from Artworks down to see an exhibit in Art Space, which was next door in Plant Zero when it was there.
Right.
And at the end of the hall, I can go right and go to Art Space, but I can go over here to the studio that had antique metal and stuff outside the studio, right? So literally a crossroads where I can either go right and go see a show and go home, or go left and have it change my life. I went left. Walked in, there's a guy there. He's like, hey, how you doing? How's the studio look? I was like, looks great in here. Looks like my studio. Bunch of old gears and metal and stuff around.
Right.
And his name was Mayola.
Okay.
John Mayola.
Okay.
And some folks came in after we were talking for a while, and they were like, hey, John. And I kind of stepped back just to see what was going on. And they were like, hey, John, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. When's the next time you teach in the welding class? And I was like, what? And so he was like, I have a class that's starting up next month over, and you have to sign up through which was Hand Workshop, which is now the Visual Arts Center.
Okay.
And he was like, I have a class, but I only have one seat left. And so I was like, one seat left. And they talked for a little while and then left. And I was like, talk for a little bit. And I said, all right, John, I'll see you later. I raced home, took out $225. I wasn't making hardly any money. $225 and dropped it on that ticket. Got that last seat in the class. That class changed my life, dude. I wouldn't be doing this if I wouldn't have went left.
What do you think? What do you think inspired the change? You were already attracted to metal through the steampunk aesthetic and the possibilities of metal, but what emotionally changed in you when you started taking Mayola's classes? Like what was like, yo, metalwork, this is it.
It was like the world opened up to me. It was like there's more that you could do than just two-dimensional work.
Right.
And it just took me like, when I say it changed my life, that is definitely the best way to describe it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because it made me emotionally think, okay, there's so much more I could do. There's so much more different ways I can express myself.
Right.
You know, as an artist.
Right.
And sometimes when you're an artist, you kind of look for that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
for
You
sure.
kind of look for that spark that's like, hey, this will take you to the next level. You can now voice yourself more with this.
Right.
And that's what that did, you know. And being inspired by seeing other artists like Melvin Edwards, you know.
We talked about
You
a couple
know.
years back. I mentioned when as soon as I
Mhm.
came in your studio, I was like, Melvin Edwards, and I knew he was like, okay, bro, you know what's up. So,
Yeah.
and I want us to riff off that too. So if you want to go in that direction,
yeah.
Go
and
for it.
I was seeing his work in history books of art history and stuff like that. And Martin Puryear,
right?
you know,
Right.
and I was like,
Woodwork
oh
and
my
his
God. I
woodwork.
was like, oh my God, these guys are saying something.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like hands down, it was like hands off. You don't have to think of art this way. You don't have to look at art in this direction. Right. You can express yourself, still have a voice, still say something in a message, and do it like this. Right. That's something that you can actually pick up and feel and turn around and look at all sides of it.
Right.
And that was like everything fell right into place with that.
Wow. So in regards to like Melvin Edwards, Martin Puryear, who you just mentioned, for you, did that start at any point in investigation? Like when you started getting involved in metal, maybe you noticed like, okay, there's a racial composition or cultural composition here. I'm often the only black person in the class. I'm often the only black person in the space. Even maybe when you travel nationally, that could be the case. How important was it for you to find artists specifically like a Melvin Edwards or other artists that you're free to name that were dealing with metal in particular? Did that inspire even more passion about it, or did it just solidify your path? Like, I knew we was there always, but now it's on.
It solidified my path. I would say the fact that, you know, I've been in all of my classes, most of my classes, it was mostly just me being the only black in the class.
For sure.
You know, so I knew how to navigate that kind of environment where it wasn't like hard.
Right.
It wasn't as like, oh, you know, black dude, get over there. You know, it wasn't so overtly racist.
Right.
Or racism was a major factor in it because I demanded respect.
Right.
I stood up when we did crits. I was like, no, I need to voice my opinion about this because I'm the only one here and I have something to say. Right. And they're going to hear it. Basically. So when I came into being a metal worker, I brought that with me. But like, there's going to be a time where I'm just going to be the only black in the room, but I'm not going to sit back silently. Right. And you're not going to just know me from my voice, but you're going to know me from my work. Right. And that's why I'm in here all the time, experimenting, doing different things, trying different things. I'll often come across people and say, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, I've never done it before. But that don't mean I can't do it.
Right.
And I just go and put myself into it, take my experience, and take other inspiration from other artists and stuff like that, kind of figure it out, problem solve it, and make it work. Right. But that's because I almost feel like I have to in a way because I don't want to short myself and I don't want to short because I see myself as a black artist. Right. Or an artist that's black. Right. I want to be able to bring that positivity because I want not only for other people to see me doing this, but I want us to see me doing this.
Right, absolutely.
You know, I want little kids to be like, "Oh, Ramsey, he's good. He's a good artist. Right. Let me be like him. Let me go learn how to weld. Right. Shit, they can come and ask me, "Can you teach me how to weld?" Yeah.
All day.
Come on.
Let's go.
I'm waiting for you to ask me that. You know, so so I can pass that along. You know, hell, I even give them one of the welders,
Right.
I'm not going to just leave you out there. Here, take this and do something with it, but I want you to do something with it. Right. Because it's important for us to be seen doing this. Right. Right. And then that opens up the minds of people who say we can't do it. Right.
Right.
So,
right. And that's important. So for you, obviously, legacy is important, and not just in the typical motif of like legacy for the sake of legacy, for the sake of ego, but like this is a tradition that goes back because, I mean, obviously we were probably some of the best metal workers at a point in time in this country because we were the
We
dominant labor force.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
we
saying?
had to be.
So just emotionally, you're representing a legacy that is much larger and vast than what we typically think of it as. And what I'd like for you to continually chime in on is how important it is that people, if not get into metalworking, understand and respect the craft of it. So can you talk about the emotional and physical intensity of doing metalwork, of doing woodwork, of doing sculpture? Because a lot of people, we see these three-dimensional objects and we almost treat it like a painting, right? And I'm not saying painting is a task in and of itself, but let's be honest. When you're dealing with physical objects like metal and wood and you're working with machinery, that's a whole other level of intensity. I've had a brief experience blacksmithing, and I can tell you, when I did it, I was like, wow, this is a lot. So I'd like for you to go into that, into how intense the process is, to just convey and educate that to the viewer.
Okay, let's go with this. Let's go with the most recent project that I had. It was intense. It was intense. It's a piece over at the Library of Virginia right now called Chaos, Calm, and the Eraser of American History.
Wow.
And it's over there now. And what had happened was, and this is like as probably the most intense project that I ever had in here, because it was a project where, we got the project on a Friday that was due next Saturday. And I knew I wanted to do a 6.5, 7 foot sculpture by 12 feet.
Wow, that's
and big. I was coming with just an idea of what I wanted to do.
Right.
But it was like, okay, I need to drill down on the idea, the concept that I want to do it for. So we got to go with Andre Johnson and Dallas Rockmore.
Okay.
Thanks to Sarah Falls over at the Library of Virginia.
Okay.
She really she was like A on it.
Oh, great.
And she got us the spot.
Great.
So started on Friday, met on Friday. Saturday I came in here, and this was the week where we had the ice storm from Thursday to Saturday, right?
Yeah. That was a crazy ice storm.
That was a crazy ice storm. So I knew I was going to be bundled up in the house on Thursday.
Okay.
So I get in here on Saturday, start working this project. Mind you, because I'm an artist and I wasn't working on commission work, this was like a project for me and to get it out there. I wasn't making any money on this piece.
Oh, wow.
And it was a huge piece.
Wow, yeah.
So I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to design this thing, build out what I want it to be, at the same time not spending that much money on it, which is almost impossible because you still got to buy weld wire and material.
Okay.
And so and also the time constraint. So I started on a project on Thursday, on Saturday, and then Sunday. And by Sunday evening, I was like, I don't like the way this is going. I have to trash what I did for the past 2 days because the concept was just too contrived. Wow. It wasn't the way I was designing and working now. Right. And I was like, this is not going to work.
Right.
So that had to go to the wayside. So I had to start again on Monday. At the same time, this storm is still coming up. And it's coming up on Thursday. So I'm like, I got 3 days to knock this thing down. It's 22, 24 degrees outside. It's 22 degrees in here.
Yo,
it ain't
super cold in here. It's not
super
insulated at all. Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to get this thing done. I got no money coming in. And the deadline was Saturday because we were supposed to install on Saturday. At the time, we didn't know if we were going to get an extension. So I come in, I work it on Monday, finally got the concept down, got the design that I want, and I'm just pulling material from everywhere. I was from in here. I'm like, I got to do as much found stuff that I can.
Right.
And it really worked on one side of it, but the other side of it, I had to buy material for.
Oh.
And so I had to do that. I had to create the woodwork and kind of figure out the base and all that stuff. And then the interim part of it, that was the history part of it. That was Monday. Tuesday, I came in and threw down again and realized my bank accounts were looking sorry.
Right.
And I wasn't making any money on this project.
So it's a project of passion, but
so
then
I was like,
tight,
and it was like one of those things where you just can't pass this opportunity up
because you need to explore the
opportunity. And then it'll be in front of people who've never seen my work.
Come on now, come on, yeah.
And so I got online and did something. I was like, look, y'all, and said to my audience, put on Instagram and Facebook, like, look, y'all, this was happening. I have the opportunity to do this project. I don't have any money. I'm not gonna lie. This is hard time. This is like the hardest times. I'm coming up on rent and mortgage,
which is real when you don't have the money
and bills. Yeah, it's like, and then the cats got to eat before I do. You know?
And then Keith got
and
to
then
eat.
Yeah, and then I got to eat if I can find a bowl of cereal. I'm fine, but as long as the cats are eating, I'm cool.
Right.
So I get online and was like, hey, I need some help. I have these posters that are, these prints that I made years ago that I could send you. The jazz posters of Enville Chorus and stuff like that. They're really cool. But I have a lot of them left over. So I was like, I'll give you these for a certain amount of money if you want to donate. If you want to just donate, that's great. I could do a little painting for you and donate and give you that for a donation. And people showed up, bro. People showed up and helped me out with that. It got me through. I wrapped all their posters and stuff like that, put them in mailing tubes and sent them off as soon as the weather broke.
Yeah.
And it just helped me out. And just like, it was something I've never thought to do. It's like, ask for help. I'm not going to like do it all the time because I don't want to do it all the time. Sure. It's like then at some point you're just like, are you abusing the system?
Right.
Are you taking these people for a ride? No, I'm not a scam artist. I'm not a tech bro who's trying to make it out on top of everybody.
Yeah.
I just needed some help, and I asked for it, and people showed up.
Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't get anything for it.
Right.
So I was like, this is great. So I was able to concentrate on finishing the project. Project finished up, came through, and we got the extension, which I was like, great. Now I can redo the interim part of it because I wanted to do more with it than I was under pressure.
Wow.
So and like I said, the pressure was hardcore. I was in here cutting. It was cold. I had to heat up stuff just to keep my hands warm. Yeah. My feet were freezing
because you're talking like 10-hour days here.
I was I was leaving here at like 1 o'clock in the morning on a freezing cold night.
Man.
In a truck that don't have heat.
Man.
So
Man.
Yeah. So that was intense. That was the most intense work situation I've ever had. Man. But it came out great because that piece is fantastic.
And people get to see from all over the state, possibly the country, that go visit the Library of Virginia. So please go check out this piece that Keith, did it. And what's the title of the piece again?
It's called Chaos and Calm in the Erasure of American History.
Okay, cool. Chaos and Calm in the Erasure of American
History. And check out
the Erasure of American History.
Okay, and you can check out the Instagram and all that stuff for it, and it's on there. So
man, I want to say that's really impressive. I mean, painting on the deadline is one thing, but building something on the deadline,
7 feet by 12.
That's insane.
That was banging.
That's wild, man. So, I mean, it's incredible because when I think of like my wife, she graduated VCU in sculpture back in, what was it, 98?
Oh,
and
so I got out in 98 too.
VCU alum in the house. And through her influence, I think about sculpture a lot. I think about, leaning into that. And it really got me into artists. I don't know if you've heard of this artist. And y'all should check her out too. Shakaya Booker. Have you heard of Shakaya Booker?
I just did a piece named after her. I just did a piece. A friend of mine asked me, she was like, hey, I want a sculpted tree in my yard. And I was like, okay, I could do this. I could do this piece. I could do it. And so I created this tree. And that was before all the chaos of this piece. But I created this tree, and it wanted to be kinetic. So what it did was I had to figure out how to take springs and use it to make it move like this, in different directions. And it was fun. But the thing is, when you're making a tree in here, you can do only so much to move it around.
Right.
So I was like ducking and welding and taking it apart and putting it outside. And I created this tree and installed it at their house, and they loved it. And it's called Shakaya the Dancing Tree.
So you know who she is.
I know who she is. And I was looking because I name all my sculptures after, except for Chaos. I name all my sculptures after Black sculptors.
Fantastic.
Let's
dive into that, bro. I want to go into that. So we were just chiming in on Black sculpture, and you were talking about how you name a lot of your sculptures after Black artists of the legacy.
Black sculptor, yeah.
Dive into that. Dive into your perspectives on it, how it inspires you. Anything you want to talk about in terms of the legacy of Black sculptors?
Because
the work y'all do?
Because the work that they've done over the past is just like incredible to me, and it tells a story, and it preserves our history. Now that we know our history is being officially erased,
Right.
it's time for us to step up. But I've been doing it for a long time. Edwards, the fisherman on Sharp's Island, named after Melvin Edwards. That was the first one. That's my man right there. You know,
it's a dope sculpture too.
Thank you. Augusta, the sturgeon, out off in Colonial Heights. She's named Augusta Savage. It's just like it just feels natural to me to pay homage to the people that came before me. You know, I'm not like going to just talk about it. I'm gonna be about it.
Right.
That's my big thing. Is like, don't talk about it, be about it. It ain't that hard to be about something.
Right.
You know, and so that's why I name all my sculptures after Black sculptors. You know, and so that's kind of the thing. You know, I always wanted to, like, that was my way of giving back to them, to being like, hey, I want people to understand where I'm coming from by seeing where they came from and see what they do. You know, kind of pass it off and then be like, hey, you know, don't just look at my work. My work is okay. Look at what they've done. And that's how you keep preserving the history of it. You know, even the Camille's, named after Camille Ballops. She is beautiful. People love it. I hear people say, oh, we love Camille. I was like, yeah, you should, because she's fantastic and she's there to bring joy to the world. You know? And so I name all my sculptures after that, just because I want people to look at the sculptures, see the names, read the names, and understand that there's something before what I've done.
Yeah, so education in that regards is hugely important to you. So you recognize, especially being down here in this area of Richmond where you're working, do you ever sense like, wow, like I'm working in areas that my ancestors were working in, pretty much doing the same kind of labor and intense work? And like, do you ever think about that? Because like right down here in this area, you know, it's supposedly there's a lot of things that happen, right?
The burial ground is right up the hill.
Burial ground is right up the hill.
Yeah.
So the one known, there's probably bones under this building, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So does that thought ever cross your mind when you're doing the work you're doing, that man, like I'm really holding on to a tradition that echoes back centuries?
Yeah, you know what? I've always considered myself like a blue collar worker. You know, because I've done basically all blue collar work until being a graphic designer.
Feels like that.
But I've always looked at that and been like, yeah, we've done a lot of work, and I want to tap into that, you know. And it does feel like I'm tapping into the ancestors and stuff like that when I'm working in this metal and all that stuff. You know, I kind of look at that as being, that's the energy that I'm trying to pull together. And because I've kind of been successful at it, I don't know how you measure that, but I think I've done pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
It's because I tap into that. It's almost like the spirit is like, the universe is like, you're doing good. You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing because you're being honest with your work.
Right.
You know? Right. And so I feel like that there is a connection there, and especially the fact that I'm willing to pay homage every time I do some work like that. You know, every time I do a sculpture, you know, even with the Camille's, I just noticed the other day, I named my Camille's. There's Camille Bouquet that's about to come up.
Okay.
There's Camille Turquoise, Camille Petite, and I'm naming each one French because of what France has done for our people when America wouldn't, you know. And so it's like, okay, all my Camilles are going to be named French because it's paying homage to how France treated us with respect when America wouldn't. And that's, why am I always thinking? I'm always thinking, bro.
That's awesome.
It's always there. It's always there, and it's like, it feels good. It feels good to be that. You know?
Right.
It feels good to be able to take people and say, hey, look at my work, but also look at this.
The history of it.
The history of it.
No, I think that's super dope, man, that you incorporate those artists into you know, your work in terms of the titles and giving people a reference point to get more information. So who would you say, a metal worker, painter, is there one artist that you would say, if you had a list, you know, not a hierarchy, but just a list, you know, it's like name your favorite NBA team from the past. If you had a list, who would you put at the top in terms of impact, even now? Maybe it was when you were younger when it happened, since you were exposed to art, or maybe it's been much later in life. But that one artist that like had you be like, oh, that's my dude, or that's my girl right there. Like that's who I rock with.
Okay, so that goes back to the Cityscapes and Noir series.
Okay.
And my man, the guy that really inspired me to do that work was Edward Hopper.
Right on.
You know, so which is odd because I probably wouldn't have liked him in real life because of his politics and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, the way he approached paintings and all that stuff, and not only the energy that he brought into those paintings, the isolation and all that stuff. Because at the time I was starting to paint the Cityscapes and Art series, I was going through that isolation, and so it tapped into me. It's like, okay, this feels like how I feel, and so I took what he was interpreting and turned it into what I wanted to say, and through my visual application of the paintings, and that's and that's the guy that I'm like, he brought me through a dark period, and that's why I continue that series today. It's the longest running series that I've ever done.
Wow.
I have a lot of series that I've started and stopped and started later, but that series has gone since the 90s, like the mid 90s.
Wow.
And it's still people still see it and know, hey, that's Ramsey.
Right.
It's my signature series.
Right.
And so I would say Edward Hopper is the top of the list, basically.
Right.
I
was reading about that on your website, and I was reading about the Edward Hopper inspired works, and I noticed like you have a vantage point for a lot of your works where it's like they're either you're looking down from a building at individuals, or you're looking at it, they're always off, and you're kind of always like, you were talking about this voyeuristic aspect to your work, and now you kind of are mentioning to me like the period of isolation. So I find that really fascinating, and I wanted to kind of know, it has a visual poetic quality to it, and I definitely see the Hopper influence. But I remember in one of your quotes on the website, maybe it was in the interview I saw, where you were talking about it's really up to the person as to what they see.
Yeah.
That could be themselves. That could be, so it is a personal experience for you.
Yeah.
But it is also about inviting the viewer to feel something.
Yeah.
To feel something.
It's about either the viewer can see themselves as the person or following this person through this environment. Either or, it's a connection between the viewer and that person on a level where it's like just them two. It's just the viewer and the person, or just the person, as the viewer.
Wow. Do you often in your own life feel like that's your vantage point of the world? Like, of course, socially we have proximity, right?
Yeah.
We have to be amongst people, but mentally we could be observing things at a distance, or like you said, feeling a sense of I'm this in the world and I'm having to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's kind of the essence of like who you are? It's like, because you say you have a lot of things going on, so you're observing everything that's happening in the world and tying it to your work. Would you say that's fair?
That's absolutely fair. Most of the time when I'm painting these pieces, there was a time where that person was me. Like every time I painted them,
you were painting it from the perspective.
I was painting it like that's that. How do you feel, Ramsey? I feel like that guy. That's me. That's that. I'm walking past all these other people. So it's a trip where, I was able to see myself inside this entire world, and how I felt was I feel closed in. That's why you have these big walls where you don't see the sky. A lot of them you do not even see the sky, so you don't know how tall these buildings are.
Those are looming over, almost like with an oppressive kind of quality.
Exactly. And also, I had a friend of mine see my work years ago, back in the 90s. He came by the apartment and saw the work, and he was like, you know what? Every time this person is walking, he's in the light. There's a light that's shining on him. And he always has a suitcase or a briefcase or whatever. He always has a satchel. I'm like, yeah, that's maybe me walking through this environment on a journey somewhere. And he was like, wait, maybe the light is hope. Maybe it is. I don't know. I never thought of it like that. But it was just like that light it's always present. It's always there shining on him and casting a shadow. And I was like, maybe that's just a vehicle that I use for visuals, or maybe it is something deeper than that. It's not up to me to figure it out, because, I know when I paint it, that's what it's for. but it's up to the viewer to figure out, okay, that light is, you know, is my faith, or is my guiding sense of being.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's just like, I just painted out there because this is how I felt. It's for everybody to decipher what they want to get out of it, and you know, that's the best way I could put it. It's just like, I'm just a painter.
Right.
I see myself in here, but other people can see whatever they want inside of it.
Right.
I had a guy one time. We were at me and my girlfriend at the time were at this festival, and this guy was walking by, and it was like, you know, you would never know this guy was into art. He's not into art. But he was like, hey, I'm never really paid attention to art. I'm not into it, but I like this.
Wow.
I was like, that's what it's there for.
Right.
You know, it's just there for people to get their own interpretation out of it.
Right, and connect with that. And it makes me think of the cloud paintings you did. And all this work is beautiful, so definitely go to his website and check it out. But it makes me think of like, it's like a reverse view, or like, but it's also that sense of isolation is there.
Yeah.
It's like now nature is like, in a sense, looming over. But it also has aspirations, because when you look to nature, when you look to the sky, there's expansion, there's opportunity. So, so how does that relate to your experience being and we'll use these racial labels because we have to, a black man in America who has alternative interests as we do, and operates in the world in a certain way? Do you feel like that isolation could stem from some of that experience, having always kind of been a black person who's operated in fields that might not always be specifically catered to the typical black experience?
It's a great question. I never thought of it like that. I just thought of it as on just a human level, like it's just me as a human, as
natural
a person,
human feeling.
You know, it wasn't like, because I've got enough political stuff that
so go down that
road. We can go down. We can drive down that dirty road for a while. You know what I'm saying? But but when I'm doing the cityscape sonar, especially when I'm doing the fragments series with the clouds, the fragment series is basically an exercise of calming down, of doing something abstract, of studying color and non-shapes and stuff like that, and how do you balance the picture plane and stuff like that. And then at the bottom you have like the landscape, and then like 3 towers in the distance. That's the representation of mankind. You know, it's just like, all right, let's just put that down there, because let's remember, the world is much bigger than nature, is much bigger than what we're doing to it. You know, when we're gone, she'll still be here, doing just as well or even better. You know, so it's just like a kind of a reminder of don't forget how small we are in this thing. You know, but being able to do those clouds, people gravitate to those clouds painted because of the colors, because of the serenity that it applies to, you know, and just like you could just sit there and look at. I found myself just looking at them, some older ones that I've done, and be like, how did I do that?
Like, you what song was I
in? What was in my head? What was I listening to? And it was just basically me just want to find colors and shapes and kind of blend it and take off of that and make it feel right. Just make it feel right. That's basically just, and I just felt right now, that's basically what it was. I just wanted to feel right. I wanted to feel right. And so, you know, that's how you get those fragment paintings. And
those are a really incredible series of paintings. And I think exactly what you're saying is, like, when you look at the works, your fragment paintings, and you look at the Edward Hopper inspired series, they feel human. There's like, because you can't tell what, like, there's no race or ethnicity to the people in those paintings.
Exactly.
It's just like, they have an energetic, a spiritual quality to them. And then when you look at the cloud paintings, there is like, you know, because Virginia has some of the most beautiful evenings.
Oh my God.
In the sky.
Oh my God.
You use the tones, and you captured that. You absolutely captured that in the works. And I get a sense, definitely, of just universal humanity. So, was art for you, was the purpose of creating art, just, let's say, just from the human you? We're not going to get into all these labels and stuff, because we know those are all abstracts and artificial, but like the human in you, was it always about building a bridge to the greater humanity, to the world? Like, art is hopeful, art is aspirational.
Yeah, it was always about empathy. You know, it's like what do people feel and how do I convey that so that they could say, because if they're not an artist, they can point to and be like that guy was like, he could point to and be like, that's how I feel. You
Right.
know, give him a voice too. You know,
Right.
just by the mere fact of what I'm doing.
Right.
And yeah, it just comes. I think it just comes basically from empathy, from under, almost understanding that people need to feel something when they see art, instead of like, what is this gray dot on a red plane doing for me? It's like why are you so heady? You could be heady with this. You could be intellectual with your art. That's fine. That's not where I want to go with my work. You know, it's just like I want to bring people along with
Right.
me on a journey, or on an understanding that, hey, you know, that little guy could be anybody in the world. It could be you. Invest yourself into it because you stopped and looked at this piece.
Right.
You know, fragments. Invest yourself into looking at the skies more. You know,
Right.
taking that time and slowing down and just being, just not even thinking about this. Look, get off of this.
You know what I'm saying?
And just stop and look and just be still for a while. It's mental, you know. So, and it helps, and that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is just like approach people in the way through my art to be like, hey, there's much more joy out there. There's much more, you know, intimate connection with the nature and all that stuff, and yourself. In a matter of fact, you know, just take a second and look at the work that's presented in front of you.
That's fantastic, man. And I'm gonna wrap it up here shortly with a few other couple of questions, because that kind of ties into what I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about this term, black art.
Yeah.
And you're just talking about how for most of us, as artists, black artists, it's just reaching out for our humanity, just trying to connect on a larger scale, but more so for black artists who might be painting or creating work outside of the typified canon. You know what I'm saying? Like of, just black representational work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so what does that term mean to you? Is it relevant at all? Does it have any bearing? Is it just a concoction of a more, a larger colonial capitalist edifice, or does it mean anything, or does it have some serviceability? I'd like for you just to go into what you think that term means, or is it even relevant at all?
I think black art is, because everything has labels, right?
Right.
Yeah, everything. You have to have a label. That's why books have covers, so you can understand. Oh, this is inside this book.
Right.
But for us to be like, this is black art, that's great, because it has an aesthetic that we associate with our culture, our history, our people. It needs to have like that kind of label so people know exactly what to expect from it.
Okay.
It's up to us to maintain it and treat it in a way that's respectful to ourselves and to our ancestors.
Okay.
It's important for us to do that, but also it's important for other people to see, oh, there's black art over here. Oh, this is quality art. Oh, this has art that has a culture behind it, has a statement behind it, has a story behind it, has a history behind it. So I think the label is necessary to guide people along to finding it and seeing what is there.
Okay.
Because everybody should have that label. It's not like, oh, black art, nobody else can see it or do it or whatever.
Right.
This is where we live. This is our house, and we're going to welcome you into it, and this is what you should expect from us. And so, I think it's necessary, because everybody goes by labels.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
Right. You're not saying that this is what embodies it.
No.
You know what I'm saying? What is black art to you?
Black art to me is an aesthetic that is, and it tells a story and it has a history behind it, like I said.
Okay.
So that's what that is. I don't consider myself as doing black art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do have some that is just like, okay, because I've got some collaborations with Karen McAdoo, Karen Clark.
Okay.
I have some collaborations with her because her work is specifically like black aesthetic.
Okay.
And I gravitated toward that and kind of built around that and that aesthetic.
Fantastic.
So, and we got some pretty cool stuff. Okay. But as far as like Camille, I don't consider her black art.
Right.
I don't consider the dancing tree black art. I don't consider Augusta, the sturgeon, black art. I don't consider almost anything I do is black art.
Right.
But the mere fact that I'm an artist that's black that did it, and I'm using my vehicle through those arts to gear people towards those histories and that culture and stuff like that. I think that's more important for me to just not even, say this is black art because it's not. Aesthetically, it isn't black art, but it's art that references black history, black culture, the ancestors and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's like I don't, I'm not like, oh, he's shying away from being black. No. Sometimes things are what they are, and this ain't that.
We can't run from this.
No,
so
you
ain't
can't
no
run
shying away from
it. I can't go home and take this off like a shirt.
So act away.
Yeah, if they take
outside of this,
it's like, hey, let's take a picture of the artist standing next to it. They're going to see me.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, oh, a black man did this, but it's not specifically black art because some people might turn off specifically because you call it black art.
Okay.
But because this work isn't overtly or intentionally black, it doesn't fall under the line of being black art.
Right. I was going to say, that's a good question because every artist that I've interviewed gives me a different perspective or a unique perspective. So to clarify, you're saying that black art is what the label, the work that, black representational art that represents aspects of black people that look like us, moving about culture in certain aspects. That is black art. But if you're a black artist and let's say you make a sculpture like a tree sculpture, you're saying that's not necessarily black art. You're just a black artist making a tree sculpture.
That's it.
Okay.
That's
it. Okay. Cool. I think it's excellent to have this dialogue and continue this dialogue. Add your comments to the feed, and definitely check out this brother's work. I have one more question which I found really interesting when we first started talking that I wanted to kind of ask you before we close out, my brother. If you feel like we want to go long, we can go long. You know what I'm saying? But I know you got things to do. You're a man about your business. Yeah. So, but you talked about your upbringing, and I thought this was huge because not every artist gets the opportunity to like grow up around a supportive kind of base.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of people like, oh, what you want to do for a living? Oh, you can't be an artist. You
go
get you a job,
or you got to dress a certain way. You got to behave a certain way. You have to do it a certain way. And so, like a lot of our experiences coming up aren't always. It's like there's some skepticism, even if there's some support. There's like it's kind of different for people. So, how important was it for you, especially having been around other artists who didn't get that support, to be like reflecting and be like, dang, it's really cool that my mom was an artist and that my dad, even though he's out here working, he supported me and my brother in pursuing our careers and didn't tell us we couldn't make money or make a living at it. You know what I'm saying? So now look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So how important was that?
That was really important to have that support, Even our friends were like, even in high school, they saw me and were like, hey, can you write my name in graffiti and stuff like that? Yeah, did it. Got 25 cents, bought a ice cream sandwich at lunch.
Snicker bar, something.
I was like hustling that good art. So awesome. I mean, but yeah, it's really important for people to support. I mean, some people's view of art is just like, oh, you have to, that's just your side hustle or art is for the kids or whatever. I'm like, no, art is for everybody. You support, if somebody's into it or you notice somebody who's actually into trying to do it, you support them because you never know where that can go. That person could be the next greatest muralist in the world. But if you tell them that they need to go get a real job, whatever that is, then you're yanking that experience and that from them. You're yanking that inspiration from them. So people should understand that if you see somebody who has a creative spirit, you nourish that creative spirit. You don't try to squash that just so they can get into a system where they go to work for somebody and have a miserable life. Because when you're a creative, that thing does not go away. It gnaws at you. And if I haven't created, I feel it. I haven't created in a while.
So true.
I was like, get antsy and be like,
I be getting
what
depressed. I'm like, why am I so down? Oh, I haven't painted. I haven't made anything because I've been worried about this work. This makes me feel cold.
Even when I'm in here working in metal and stuff like that, there's days when I'm like, why do I feel like this? Oh, I haven't painted in a month. I got to paint tomorrow.
Right.
And you have to let that out because it's part of you. It's part of your spirit. And it's weird. People may not understand that, but man, when you're an artist, you understand it. Boy,
right.
You know what that is.
Right.
And it's good that you recognize it because you can get angry at some people for no reason,
bruh.
when you're not doing your work. Yeah, be grouchy, be like, oh,
you don't even know what be booty. No, that's so true. So tap into the importance of creativity as a needed practice for all. Because I think a lot of times we put labels on who can paint, who can do this. You've had talent because somebody's put hard work in and time in. Now all of a sudden, they're the only ones who can draw something. They're the only ones who can experiment. They're the only ones. How important is it? And do you feel like it's even missing from our culture?
Oh yeah,
just creating for the sake of creating.
I think because we've gotten so used to being digital, being on the phone and stuff like that. And I even catch myself doing it too. Sometimes I'm getting here and I start scrolling politics.
Once you get on that,
yeah, you start scrolling politics and be like, oh, here's a cat video. I'm gonna watch this cat, and then you go down that rabbit, that off ramp.
Yeah,
start looking at cat videos.
Right,
you're like 15 minutes in, and you're like, what did I just do? Oh, time warp. I gotta work, bro. Let me put this down. So I mean, but it's like so many things pull us away from being a human creative now. People could be AI creative, just putting in prompts and stuff, but that stuff still weirds me out, bro.
Okay.
I look at some AI and I'm like, I get the creeps, really. And so, I think it's really important for people to, even people who, I keep telling people, if you have a fence in your yard, right? It ain't gonna take nothing for you to go get a sheet of wood, just get some colors that you like, and just paint it.
Right.
Hang it up.
Right.
Just to add some color to your world. It's just that simple. Nobody's asking you to be a Picasso or Rembrandt. Just try it. Just try doing something with your hands, just to. If you want to see color over here on the gray wall, put some color on it. It's not going to cost you that much. It's not going to make you pay bills. It's not going to make you pay taxes. It's just going to make you say, "Hey, I like that color." It is right there every time I look over there. It's not that hard, bro. It's not that hard.
Not that hard.
Because
we could use it in our culture, man. We could really use it in society.
Yeah.
In terms of just, we've always heard the old shtick of like, oh, they're taking art out of the schools, they're taking creativity out of the schools, and it's only appropriated for people who pursue it professionally or this or that. And that's not the case. I mean, obviously support the professional artists of what we do, you know what I'm saying, if you want to, but it is important because I think when I'm creating, even if money's low, sometimes my best work comes out in that because I haven't allowed, the overarching capitalist system to create so much anxiety that and then when I'm working, I feel liberated. I'm like, cool, I got some materials, now I'm working, I'm good. I'm sure you feel the same.
Because you know why? Because your brain is forced to think in different ways. Like, because I work, specifically, a lot of the work that I started off doing was found object artwork.
Right.
Because people would be like, hey, I got this thing. Okay, I'll take that thing and do something with it, and change it up and make it different and all this stuff. Because it's just like, I love that creative process. I love the problem solving of it. And those things that you just find like in an alley or somewhere on the ground or in your backyard, you look at it and be like, this could be cool. And you start thinking about the shape and the design of it and stuff like that. And you're like, I don't have to spend any money on this. I can work on this just because I want to work on it.
Right.
There's different ways of doing it without having to be in the capitalist system and having to buy everything you need. Now, when you run metal and stuff like that, there's obviously things you have to buy the welder, you have to buy the materials, the safeties, repairs and stuff like that.
Your
and the wire, the wire feed and all that stuff. So, but outside of that, if I needed to get materials, sometimes I just go look in my backyard and get it. From all the like tonnage of metal that I have there, that's just like stuff that people gave me and put something together, And that part is fun because it's liberating your mind into thinking, okay, this is possible. I just need to figure out how to do it,
Yeah, there's a certain resourcefulness that I find that I'm hearing from you about sculpture making. And that's something like, because being a painter, you got to buy your acrylics, you got to buy your brushes. You're still kind of tied into it. And my wife always talking about, because she reminds me, like y'all kind of remind me, I have a similar take on sculpture, where she's like, oh, the resourcefulness of just being able to find something and make art from that.
Yeah.
And like, could you maybe go into like, well, you kind of really did already go into the difference, like the perspective of like finding a found object and then like seeing that, because like it's one thing to put, let's say, some gray in an area on a canvas,
Yeah.
but then to see, let's say, a Coke bottle on the street and already start to see a world of an image or a sculpture come up in front of you, like what's the is there a difference in the thinking, or is it more just expanding, like you said, expanding
I
your
think
perspective?
I think it's more of an expansion.
Okay.
Because like if you go from painting, if you're like, okay, I could paint this over here, take this. Oh, this is good, but I want to see something different over here. And you take a different color, or you take a different shape, and just blot it on there, and have to figure out how to get out of that space, out of that problem that you create, you created for yourself. Then that makes you think differently of like, okay, I can pull this off over here. Okay, now what's happening over here? I could change this over here too. So going from painting like that to actually doing metal work is just like, okay, I have this thing where, like, let's take for instance this. Why it's sitting back here? This right here, all this has come from flat metals and round metals. All this was just flat, straight stuff.
Wow.
I had pipe. I had just basically just round bar and stuff like that. But I had to figure out how to create it, how to make it look like a car, especially one that's like a chassis. Right. I've never done that before.
Wow.
But looking at the things that I had, I'm like, okay, if I put this here, how does that look compared to that? What, if I do this, because I did that, and it was like, okay, it looks a little taller than I wanted, so I had to cut the whole thing, drop it down something. Like, okay, now I had to thin this out because that looks too short, for that. And it's just like moss ball. It just kind of rotates around itself. And then when you come to the found objects, you have this right here and this right here, like a bike brake.
Chain ring, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bike. It's a disc brake for a bike, and then that part from a car. And so it's like those kind of things. It's just like, okay, that makes visual sense to me. And it's just stuff that I didn't have to buy any. I bought this material, but this is all basically scrap material.
Right, that you could.
That all I just walk over here and just grab.
Construction stuff, right.
Yeah,
right,
so it's just like all this is basically scrap material.
Wow.
And it's that kind of thing is where you take your piece and be like, okay, I can't fall in love with it. Like I told you back, in school, they were like, Javier Tapia told me, hey, don't ever fall in. Yeah. Name sound familiar? Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. Wow. So he told me one day, he was like, I like what you're doing, but don't fall in love with your work. Like, don't be afraid to change what you're doing. Right. And that changed my whole perspective of how I operate as far as a creative. It's like, okay, I like this piece, but I don't like this piece over here. But I need to change the whole thing. Let me go ahead and change the piece that I like into something better. And oftentimes you go to something better than what you created, because now the whole thing becomes better. Right. Instead of just this part over here and then the rest of it sucks.
Just relying on that.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true. And it's very true, because a lot of times you might rest on what you like and there's more to say.
Yeah.
And if you're able to sometimes intentionally take what you like and reconfigure it, then you're forced to have to, make your brain come up with new possibilities.
And those neurons just start popping off.
So it's about the whole concept of building your brain and having it expand, and then you can be open to other things. So y'all are listening, don't just rely on one discipline or maybe one lane. Allow yourself to be channeled, and definitely when you're speaking with other artists or you're getting critiques, like, take that information in, because my wife has been huge in shaping or directing things that I did that I never would have thought of. But you got to be open to that, and you have to be willing to, vulnerable enough to take those chances. And you've definitely done that with your work, bro. Like, it's impressive. Like, definitely go check his work out at the Library of Virginia. The piece, could you name the piece again for me, man?
It's Chaos and Calm and the Eraser of American History.
All right, cool. Chaos and Calm and the Erasure of American Black History. Check that out. Obviously, you have a website.
Yep, RamseyArtworks.com.
Ramsey, and that's Ramsey.
Yep, and you can find me on Instagram at FoundPunkRVA, FOUNDPUNK RVA. com.
Yeah, so y'all, I mean, this guy is incredible, multidisciplinary artist, high level, all levels, you know, just incredible historian and just an incredible man. And I just thank you so much for taking time to do the Infinite Arts podcast, man. It's truly an honor, brother. Like, for real. Y'all
Thank
definitely
you. Thank
support
you.
him. Check out his work and follow him and just see what he's up to. And we'll definitely be following him and checking him out. But thank y'all so much for the episode. That's it, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
yeah,
dude.
Man.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
thanks for